All right, so maybe you've seen our previous episodes as I've been walking you through rebuilding this Jeep Wrangler. If not, check those out. But today, we're continuing the story of rebuilding this Jeep Wrangler. Stay tuned. Hey, so welcome back to Southern Crash Kings. So up until this point, I've talked about buying the Jeep we're rebuilding. I've talked about the first parts Jeep that we bought. And now, we've got to talk about the second parts Jeep. Preferably, we'd like to find one hitting the rear that has a good front clip. That way I can get the fenders, the hood, the grill, radiator, all that. So now with these Wranglers, you got to be careful in your research because some parts on the Wranglers, such as some body parts, go all the way from 18 back to 2007. But some components, with this being a 17 and the next to the last year of production, some of those components only go back to like 15 or 13. So you got to be careful when you do your research. But fortunately, the body parts, the radiators, all that, I could go back to 13. So try to find the lowest mileage, 13 or 14 I could get. Those will obviously be cheaper than buying a new one that would have the parts. So this one I was able to pick up a 2013 Jeep Wrangler JK Sport. And this one only had 62,000 miles on it. So it was a low mileage for the year. It was rear-ended. So that was nice because it has all the front body parts I need. Got a second set of airbags, no damage there. And overall, very clean Jeep Wrangler. Now, where did I find this one? This was at the IAAI location in Knoxville, Tennessee. So, made a trip up there and got that one. How much did I have to pay for that one? $6,150. So, as you can see, getting cheaper as you go older and older with these Wrangler parts Jeeps. So, once again, we have to pause work on this Jeep, and we got to get that Sport model in the shop and get it torn down. And this one I got to be careful because one, all the front end components on this one, the radiators, AC condensers, all the fuse boxes, everything was broke on this one. On the second parts Jeep I bought, they were all burnt. So the Sport model, I really got to pay attention on how it comes apart because that's the only way I'm going to know how to put this Jeep back together. So tons of pictures, tons of videos, but you slowly start working your way from the front back and get the radiators, get the wiring, the fenders, and get it stripped down to basically all you have is your inner fender aprons. Now, I also need those inner fender aprons for this Jeep. Now, there's a splice point to where those fender aprons mount to the firewall and the tub or the body of the Jeep Wrangler. And so there's some spot welds you have to drill out. But normally what I do is I strip the Wrangler back, including pulling the dash, and I just make a cut right across the front door openings, all the way across the floor pan, and just take that whole front end assembly to the body shop and let the body shop splice the fender aprons where they want, and basically give them more than they need. So also while I'm pulling the dash out of this 2013, I'm making note on that because I know I still got to pull the dash out of this Wrangler and potentially use the heater housing out of that 2013 Jeep Wrangler. So get that 13 Wrangler stripped down. So now my job is temporarily done. This Jeep, along with the body parts from the 13 Wrangler, now have to go to the body shop for that front end to be realigned, mocked up, test fit, and then painted. Now, when it comes to body work, depending on where you live, it's all across the board what that stuff costs. Now, particular body shop that I use for painting, and believe me, I have done painting in the past, I will gladly pay somebody to paint. That is such tedious work, so slow. I just don't have the patience for that. So I gladly outsource that. The body shop I use, they charge $300 a panel to paint. So the grill, one panel. Hood is a panel. Fenders, so forth. So on this particular Jeep, I had the grill, the hood, both fenders, and the right front door to paint. So that's 5 panels. So you're looking at $1,500. Plus, they've got to pull the front fender apron over where it lines up with the new frame, and then once they get it straight, they do all the pulling with the old fender aprons. Then they take the damaged fender aprons off and put the new fender aprons on off of the 2013 Wrangler. So they put it on the frame machine, did all that, and got it all lined up perfect. So then they get it painted, and then they bring it back to me. Now, I'm excited to see the Jeep back because it looks totally different now that it's painted. But now I realize I got to get back to work on it, and I still got quite a ways to go. So first thing I got to do is figure out what in the world's going on behind that dash. So I pull the dash out, and sure enough, the heater housing is busted. So I did some research, And unfortunately, the heater housings for the 17 model are only interchanged for a couple years. Supposedly, the 15 or the 13 won't work. Well, the 15 was damaged from the fire. The 13 model Sport, if you looked at it, it looked identical, but up close, the blower motor resistors were in different locations. So I decided this was what my game plan would be. I would take all the internal components out of my heater housing, use my heater core, all the actuators, the AC evaporator, put it in that Sport model heater housing, and then I would leave the Sport blower motor resistor in it because it was in a location I didn't need, and I would add this 17 blower motor resistor to that housing. So that's what I did, and I wouldn't know until I got it all back together if it worked. And thankfully, I got that dash put back together, and it worked. Now, pulling the dash out, changing all that, putting the dash back in took a good 7-8 hours. It took way longer than you would think it would, but there's just a lot of things you got to take apart, especially if you haven't done it before, and having to figure out where all the screws go and all the clips, and try not to break anything. So now I got that behind me, I can now focus under the hood. So I start with getting the inner fender components back on. So get your wiring run, get your reservoirs in, and drop the radiator in and do all that. Now, I go ahead while I had the dash out and I install the airbags that I'm going to use. I use the passenger airbag cover off of the 15 Rubicon, but then actually use the airbag off the 13 because it didn't have smoke damage like the 15 airbag did. And then the steering wheel, I ended up using the 13 airbag. Now, if you call Mopar, they'll say those airbags don't interchange, but they work perfectly. And my 17 airbag computer that's in there likes what it sees, and there's no airbag codes. So one other thing that I checked before I did a final assembly of the grill was I went ahead and replaced the crash sensors up on either side of the radiator. And I ended up having a problem with no communication to the right front one. And so it turns out there's a little harness that runs behind the radiator. It goes to the headlights, and there was a damaged wire there. So normally, if it's like to the headlight or something like that, I would just repair it. But it was a wire damage going to the airbag system. So I ended up just buying that harness from the dealer, $100 or something, and just put a new harness on it. And now the front end is coming back together very, very nicely. So the last thing I got to do on the front is go ahead and get that front bumper put on. And now the front bumper off the 15 model Wrangler had some smoke damage, but the actual texture of the coating on the Smittybilt bumper was not damaged. So I hauled that back to the body shop. They put it in the paint booth, and I found some trim paint just in an aerosol spray can. They painted that up nicely, and it matched the original finish of the Smittybilt bumper when it was new. And boom, the front bumper and the winch is complete. So obviously, also got to get the fender flares on and get the front inner fender liners on. And now the Jeep Wrangler is really almost done. Now also, before I get it on the road, I had to put the stickers back on it. So I ordered some Rubicon stickers for the hood. You've got the Wrangler Unlimited stickers that go on the fender. On the driver fender, you've got this JK a 35th anniversary badge that goes on there, and then also the chrome Jeep letters that go on the grill. So that's a little tricky to install. I mean, it's not terrible. What I usually do is just use some soapy water, spray on there, put your stickers on, and then kind of squeegee the air bubbles out, and you still kind of move it around. But once you get it where you like it, just let it stay there, and it'll dry, and that soap will evaporate, and the stickers are be good to go. So that's a little trick for installing that. So then there's really only two things left to do. I've got to get the AC recharged, and I have to get an alignment. Now, this Jeep Wrangler takes that new Freon. It's the R134 something at the end. It is ridiculous how much that costs. And so fortunately, the same friend of mine that owns a body shop that painted the front clip on this Wrangler and did the framework, he was recharged the AC system and basically just charged me whatever it was cost to him. And so it still cost me nearly $300 just to get the AC system recharged on this. And it doesn't hold that much Freon. So I got that, and then had to get an alignment done on it. And thankfully, it lined up perfect. Now, with rebuilt title vehicles, though, your state may be different, but most states require some sort of inspection depending on the age of the vehicle and what all was wrong with it. So this particular Wrangler, newer, blown airbags, they flagged it for inspection. So in my state, when you turn in your application, you have to submit also receipts of every part that you replaced that is major parts. So your body parts, your airbags, your engine, transmission, doors, fenders, stuff like that. And you have to show the VIN number of the vehicle it came off of. And then also the receipt must show the application, whoever's named the application's in, it's got to match the receipt and so forth. So it's a little tricky, but most states have that very clear online how to do that. So the application was submitted. Sure enough, they're going to have to inspect it. So you never know how long it's going to take. I've heard stories where it takes 6 months for them to come out and inspect it. I've had some where it just took a few days. Thankfully, this Wrangler, I just had to wait a few weeks, and they were able to get in here, inspect it, and we're good to go. Now, one thing that's interesting, I'm always nervous when they come to inspect it. I don't know why, because I know I do everything correct, but you've got some inspectors that may be a little over the top than others as far as how they inspect. But in this case, Wrangler passed, and now we can go down, get it registered, and get on the road. Now, there's one more thing I want to do this Jeep Wrangler, and that requires buying a third parts Jeep and the fourth Jeep overall. We'll save that for next time. Hey, thanks for watching this video, but that's all for today as I walk you through rebuilding this Jeep Wrangler. Check the channel, because soon I'll be uploading the next video. We'll see you then.